Good morning, class. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Very good. Good morning. We are going to discuss about our final topic today. As you all know, we had the second midterm yesterday, and it seems like the procedure is going to be the same for the final exam. So we will follow the same structure in the final. The finals will be after the 5th of June. I am not quite sure when the final exams will be announced, but probably next week they will be basically a work to announce the final exams. And according to the decision of the higher institute, the final exams will be online as well. So I am going to follow the same structure as I did with the midterm, and you will take the final exam. The only difference will be this time there will be all of the topics. So basically, in your midterm, you had up to the user-defined functions, and the user-defined functions wasn't included. I didn't ask a question about that. And in your final, you will have user-defined functions as well as arrays, which is the topic that I'm going to cover today. On the other hand, next week is a public holiday, so I won't have a class. And today I plan to finish all my topics. And the week after, on the 1st of June, we have a class as well. I am not going to do any new topic on that specific day, but if you want to bring questions that you don't understand how to solve or how to approach, or if you want to discuss about the final exam procedure, which I will discuss more in that course, we can discuss those things. So I will still pop into class should you want to have final questions to me. And that's why I will do a lecture before the exam. Before I start to my final topic today, is there anyone who wants to talk?
Yes, and me.
Yes, please raise your hand on the panel so I can see that you raise your hand, gentlemen, and because there might be multiple people. Yes, Ali Reza, can you talk, please?
Hello, sir. The
Hello.
problem with the exam was that,
Can you please speak louder because we cannot hear you?
okay, the problem with the exam was that we couldn't, actually, we was kind of punished for others, other people mistakes. So we couldn't even go back and fix the question that uh, it was wrong. Is it
It was
possible to?
explained to you during the procedure of the exam that you won't be able to go back, gentlemen, and you are not punished. I just told you that spend enough time with each question. It was discussed in the online sessions that I was going to do this. I told you that the questions will be sequential. I also wrote before you take the exam, there's a screen that you say start the exam. This was also explained there. So it wasn't a big surprise to you. You already know this if you are coming to the classes. It was a necessary evil, I think, because the exam is being taken online. And as you know from the first midterm, all of the questions were taking pictures. They took the pictures of questions and distributed them among people because they can quickly find which question is where in which student's account, and they agree on the same question to give the same answers. In order to prevent cheating, this was done for deliberately, and every single person involved in this procedure, including my department head, the dean, also knows the situation. It wasn't like something I did to surprise you or to eliminate you. I talked to my dean, I talked to my department head, and according to their guidance, this was done. So it wasn't like my only decision. It was a decision came from a higher authority, and I applied it. Okay.
Is it possible to let us go back in the final
I
at least,
can't let
because
you
we will
go back
miss them?
in an online exam, gentlemen, because the students tend to cheat a lot. This is the only way one of the ways that will prevent cheating. And when I look at the second midterm results and compare them to the first midterm, people couldn't cheat in this exam because of the precautions that I took. They couldn't cheat. So most of them, they did the questions themselves. Majority of them. Of course, maybe some people, I don't know if they cheated or not. But when I check the record time, the browsers and everything, whatever data is being recorded behind Moodle, I can see that many of the people did not cheat this time. It wasn't like the first midterm. So I think this was an important precaution that we needed to take. And I'm glad that I took that decision actually, because as you can see, the results will be announced very soon, and you will see that. Please stop typing to my screen, or I'll just stop your writes. Okay, it's very annoying. And as I told you, this was one of the reasons why people couldn't cheat in this exam. Now, if you have any other questions about this, I will announce the exams. I checked them briefly, but I will announce them within this week. So please give us a couple of days more, and I will announce the exams very soon. Anyone else, apart from
Yes.
this?
Hello, sir.
Yes, Kamal.
Yeah.
Yeah, hello, sir. I just want to say.
I'm asking
yes,
a question. You guys are asking a question as well. Okay.
Guys, can you speak one by one, please? Please speak one by one. Okay, Kamal? Yes, talk.
yeah. Yesterday exam, when you start the exam, first of all, if you said if it was a good idea to make us like not cheat or anything like this, yesterday when you open the exam, we solved number one, we solved number two, we solved number three, we have to number four. For instance, I didn't know how to solve it. It was pretty difficult for me. My mind stopped on it. So if you put it like open, at least we can solve the other questions. Then all the time left, I can keep it at least to think about the question. I didn't even know how to solve it.
Gentlemen, the conditions here are not classroom conditions, as you know, okay? We are not in a classroom anymore. I have no way to put an invigilator there to watch over you. Okay, I'm trying to make an exam under the given situations, as you can see. If it was this a classroom environment, I will of course agree with you, but we are not in a classroom environment, okay? You have your phones next to you, you have access to internet, you have your friends talking during the exams, okay? You have a lot of advantages, all right, that you can get help to. In a classroom environment, you don't have internet, you don't have access to talk to others, you don't have your phone. If you provide me an environment where invigilators can watch over each and every one of you, and you do not have any access to the internet or your phone or whatsoever, just like in a classroom environment, I am more than happy to provide you the chance to go back to the previous questions. Very, very happy, in fact. But the situation is not like this right now, okay? And there are consequences. This is the way that I'm going to apply. It is not something I'm going to discuss with you. We already discussed this, and this is my decision, not yours. I have been doing this course for more than 13 years. Okay? When you were going to primary school, I was teaching this course. Please don't teach me how to teach my own course. All right? Please.
Excuse me, sir. I didn't say teach you how to teach us the class or something. I respect your decision and I respect you as my teacher. But I just like give you my mind that we
I
need to go
understand your
back.
mind. Thank you very much. But it's not something I will apply under these given situations. Okay? If things go back to normal, all right, where I can watch over you in a classroom environment, put an invigilator there, I am more than happy, trust me, more than happy to allow that option to you. Right now,
Okay,
it's not
okay,
like
sir,
this.
sorry because I
Okay?
asked. Sorry because I asked.
It's all right. No, don't be sorry because you ask, okay? You can, of course, ask, but my answer is not going to change. Yes, final questions.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah. Good morning.
good morning.
Yes, sir. I just want to ask a question about the exam because my other classes I do got midterm and also like assignment and all that. So I don't know how you're going to grade us. Is it only based on the midterm and the final?
What are you talking about, gentlemen? I don't give an assignment in this course.
Okay. So the
So do
grading is
you
going
come
to
to classes? Do you even attend the online classes, or is this your first time?
No, I do attend online classes. I do
Okay,
attend
if
online
you attend
classes.
the online classes, you already know that there is no assignment in this course.
Yeah, so I just want to know, is it based on the midterm and the final you're going to grade us?
You have 2 midterms and 1 final, which is already discussed in the online sessions. If you come to class, you already know this, that there are 2 midterms and 1 final. 2 midterms already passed. We have a final, which will announce it on Moodle, okay?
Okay,
So
sir.
everything is announced on Moodle. Follow it, and you will see the date of the final exam, just like you saw the date of the midterm. Okay? Everything
Okay,
is announced there. All right?
okay.
All right. Thank you. Yes. Final question before I start my lecture. Ask it, gentlemen. Zarif, you can ask it.
When is the final exam taking place? When is the
We
date of
cannot hear you. You need to speak louder.
When is the date of the final exam?
It will be announced on Moodle, gentlemen. I just told you 2 seconds ago. It will be announced on Moodle, just like your midterm. Okay? Right, I'm gonna start the topic today that we need to cover because this will be included into your final exam. And I like to finish all of my topics before the term ends. This topic is called arrays. An array basically is a collection of data. It is a little bit different from all the primitive data types that you have seen, because this time when you keep the data, you keep it organized in a sequential structure where it is stored as a set rather than one data, one value only. This is why arrays are called, or at the level of collection of data. So once you have defined the primitive data types for your program, such as integer, double, long, char, if you have multiple of them, you can actually store these as a set rather than storing them one by one. This allows you the option to manipulate and organize your data in a better way, in a more efficient way than storing them into individual variables. It is important to use arrays in because of many different reasons. First of all, the program becomes tidier and you write less code. That is an important issue why you should always prefer arrays. Second, because the data types that you store are all the same type, it will be more difficult for the computers to compute several variables one by one rather than processing one array. So in other words, array will give you performance when you write a computer program. There are some specific rules you need to follow when you write arrays. In C, arrays can only have primitive data types, such as float, double, integer, long, character, string, and whatsoever. We all know these data types. In another programming language, it is possible to create array of objects or even classes. However, you do not learn object-oriented programming. This is an introductory level programming, so you're just learning programming right now. So whenever we create an array, it will be just primitive data types. Second, An array is a series of elements of the same type. This is very important. So if you have components of different types, let's say you have a variable of double, integer, and a string in a program, then it is not possible to use array for those specific values, because array works under the assumption that all the values are of the same data type. So if all of them are double, all of them are integer or string, then you can use an array. The number of elements in an array, which is the number of items, cannot change during the program execution. This is also very important. Once you have created an index value for the array, once you define a total number of components you're going to put into an array, you cannot change this during the runtime. Oh, you can stop the program and increase the value or decrease it as you like in the source code, but the size of the array cannot expand or shrink during the runtime. All of the items in an array must be of the same type, just as we described as double integer, which is of the same type. And an array also assumes that each element given in an array requires the same amount of storage in the memory. So this is why it might be a very efficient way to use an array instead of a double or integer value, because in those cases you can define one integer as short, another one as long, but in here when you define the array, it will be all the same data type. Each element in an array is numbered by its index, sometimes called the offset number. This is one of the important parts of the array. So basically, when we start counting the numbers, as we are human beings, our initial number is always 1. So the first one will be the 1, the second one will be 2, the third one will be 3, and so forth. For the computer, however, this is not the way of counting. The computer starts, especially with the arrays, start counting from 0. So the first component in the array is actually offset number 0, not 1. 1 will be the second, and 2 will be the third, and so forth. Because of this logic, because the very first number in the array is the component number 0, okay, it will always start the offset number in between 0 and n minus 1, okay? This is the range that the array will always work. So assuming that you have an array of 5 components, the range will be in between 0 and n minus 1, which is 4. 5 minus 1 will be 4. So this means that for an array of 5 components, the components will be the 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, and finally 4, which goes to n minus 1. Individual elements of an array can be also executed using usually a for loop. So basically, when you define an array value, because the operations you follow on them are more or less the same operations, they are very much and oftenly used with for loop. It is possible to use array with other loops, such as a while loop, but this is a very, very rare case. Like I rarely see either online or in other tutorials anyone using arrays with other loops than for loop. So whenever you use arrays, there should be for loops involved, either for or for each loop should be involved, so that you can basically count the number of components or do operations on them. So just to summarize, array is a collection of data. The collection of data should depend on a data type, such as integer, string, character, or whatsoever. It is possible to create any primitive data type in C and in C++ as a collection of data. When you define this collection, you store the values together rather than keeping separately. For example, assume that I want to store the midterm results of all students in my class. If I want to do that, I can create the number in here, the number of class in here. When I create it, I will say something like integer midterm grades and write the number of students who have completed the midterm. And once I have written this down, basically, once this is written down, we can basically operate on the midterm results one by one. And the range will change from 0 to n minus 1. So assuming that I have 30 students in my class, this will go from 0 to 29. To process this, we will basically put them into an array. So the position 0 will have a value, position 1 another value, 2 another value, and so forth. So it will go from the 0 position up to the n minus 1 position, and each and every one of them will have a value. Is there anything you don't understand theoretically? I will show an example so you will see this, how this can be executed and so forth. But if you do not understand anything in the logic, you can ask it. So how to declare the arrays? If you want to declare an array, basically you type the declaration just as we type the every single variable so far. You put the data type here, as you can see, and you give your array a valid name, whatever that valid name is. And finally, you define a size. This is very important. If you do not define a size for your array, then the compiler will trigger an error. Because when you define and declare an array, you must have a size. Okay, that is the procedure that the array should be defined. You can define the components inside the array one by one, like you can see in here. So starting with the component 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can give them random values. You can define them as you declare the array itself. So it is possible that you define the size and then define the components. It is possible to do that. Or you do it all together. So you can basically declare it all together like this. So there are 3 ways to declare arrays. One, that is you declare it without defining the components inside. You declare it and you define the components later. Or as you declare it, you define the components as well. It is possible to use all 3 ways. As I told you many times in this course, there isn't one way to write programs. There are multiple ways, and each of these ways will serve its purposes. Now, one of the things that you should really know, however, that when you write the components themselves, it is optional to indicate the number. So it is possible for you to leave the brackets empty, as you can see, because you have the components. So you can write the number of components and don't write the components themselves, or you can write the components themselves, but you do not write how many of them exist inside the array. And you can also do both. But if you omit both the components themselves, and if you also do not write anything inside the square bracket, then the compiler will give you an error because you neither defined the elements themselves nor you defined the number in the array. So this will generate an error. So make sure to define one or the other at least. Once again, it is okay if you define how many components you will have inside the array, but you do not write the component themselves. It is also okay if you write the components, which is the opposite, but you do not write how many of them are there, since the compiler can automatically decide this. If you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will automatically put 5 here, even if you don't put it. However, if you don't do both of them, so assume that I have written down integer numbers and I did not declare anything inside here and try to put the semicolon to move to the next line, this will generate an error. So that's not something we do. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this, but you can't do this. It will give you an error. Okay? So how does array work? So whenever you define the array itself, as you can see, it is possible to put the components inside. You can create a double array and put the components, and as you place the components, this becomes 0, this becomes 1. You will notice that the array accepts up to 3, which is 0, 1, and 2, but because the last one was not entered, it will automatically be placed as 0. Okay, so in this array example, it was dedicated that there are 3 components inside the array, which are the 0 component, 1, and the second one, the offset numbers. And when you define them, 0 and 1 is filled with values, as you can see, but the last one is missing. So what happens in here is that because the last one is missing, the compiler will put 0 automatically. Okay? So if you actually omit components, the compiler can automatically complete this. Any questions so far?
Yeah, hey Kane. So when are you going to teach us how to roll a joint?
Very funny. Any questions? We're going to move on into the example just to see it. You can see the example on the screen. There is an array defined there, as you can see on the screen. And when we define this array, we will do a similar exercise just to show you an example of how to define them. When you define the array, you must write either the element themselves, whatever elements it exists inside, or the numbers. So it is possible to omit them.
Sometimes I watch it.
Yeah, Konami, now get exam
If I'm sitting on my laptop, it's just to watch it. No,
like his question was maybe
check.
check the question and see the that one.
So it is possible to omit these numbers, as you can see. Okay. And you can also write the omit the components should you want to just type the number. But when you omit both, it will generate you an error. In this example, the component themselves are written down. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the compiler automatically puts 4 here. And the elements goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, which you can see them in here, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, So that is the logic of the array. It starts from a certain value, which is always 0 in this case, and goes up to n minus 1. You can put the components and you can process them. If you want to process the arrays themselves, then we'll need to use a for loop, okay, which is a very important part. Now we are approaching to the 40 minutes limitation of my class. So I'm gonna stop this video here, re-invite you on BB, and we'll continue with the second half. Before I stop up to here, do you have any questions? Please raise your hand so I can see this on the panel and give you the right to talk. Now, because no one raises their hand, I assume you don't have any questions then, because I can only follow if you raise your hand on the panel. Since you do not do this, I assume that you do not have any questions. Yes, someone has a question. Yes, talk.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes, teacher. Can you repeat after array? Can we have extra example of user-defined function?
Yes, we can repeat it. No problem.
Okay,
But
thank
you
you.
just focus on this one first, okay? Because this will be included into the final. So if you have any questions on this, ask it now. If you do not, I will invite you to the second half.
Okay.
All right. Since you do not have any questions, I'm going to end this session now. Please go back to BB and I will send you another link for the second half. All right. See you soon.